Now,
Mm.
there was a video of, I don't know if he could actually do this. The amount of government cutting he'd have to do is bonkers. But this is what Trump said yesterday about income tax.
Legal aliens into military aircraft and flying them back.
Wait, what? No, that's not the clip.
We can watch that
The,
one. That sounds fun too.
That does sound fun. He talked about essentially there was a time in this. Here it is. Here's the clip.
Is going to be very rich again, and it's going to happen very quickly. It's time for the United States to return to the system that made us richer and more powerful than ever before. You know, the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States, relatively speaking. In other words, relatively. And they set up the Great Tariff Commission of 1887. And this commission had one function, what to do with all the money that we took in. It was so enormous that they had no idea. It was a blue ribbon committee. It was set up 1887. And what to do with all of the money that we had. And again, Teddy Roosevelt was a beneficiary because when McKinley was killed, he took over this vast sum of money and he did all of those national parks and all of the other things. And I'm not knocking him, but he was given a vast amount of money, and that was all made through tariffs. We had no income tax. The income.
I mean, that was also before Social Security.
Right.
That was before a lot of the entitlement programs that our government pays for, like welfare.
Mm-hmm.
And
they had tons of money. They didn't know what to do with it, so we created 1,000 things to spend it on, and now we have no money.
Yeah, I would be happy if they just lowered taxes and, and found a way to, lower spending, lower taxes, like pass it on that way. That's fine by me. What do you think? I'll go to Hannah Claire first. What do you think the odds are of this actually passing? Or actually being able to do this? It's not up for, it's not up for debate yet.
It's kind of interesting. It depends on which senators come out or which congressmen come out and say, like, we're on board, we're going to push it through. I think him floating it will stress certain states out. They'll say, no, we need federal income tax, and that's important. But it's like 9 states that already don't have an income tax, right? Like Texas, Alaska, Wyoming, Tennessee, New
Florida,
Hampshire,
Vegas.
right? And so it's obvious that there are ways to exist without an income tax. Now, those states compensate by having higher property tax, higher sales tax, things like that. But I think with all things, Trump is testing the waters to get the reaction. Like, he floats no federal income tax. Maybe someone will be like, great idea, let's do it. And he'll be like, okay, that becomes our newest number one priority. Or it'll become a threat that he'll have in his back pocket. Kind of like the tariffs are working. Like, tariffs are a great idea for a lot of reasons, but also it's working to say, like, if you don't cooperate while we're deporting people, we will enact tariffs. I wonder if the federal income tax will sort of become the same carrot or stick approach for Trump.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about a legacy, ending federal income tax would be his all-time legacy.
Yeah.
How many
people really freak out about it? I mean, West Virginia's tried to repeal its state income tax, I think 2 or 3 times in the past decade, and it fails repeatedly because people get so freaked out about the other taxes that will go up. So, you raise federal income tax, where else are you going to have to pay for it? I just don't think the federal government manages your money that well. So why it should get to continue to collect federal income tax is kind of ridiculous.
Well, if you go to a state like Texas that has no state income tax, and now you roll in no federal income tax. That'd be pretty nice, don't you think, Melonie?
Yeah,
I mean, you're in Mexico now.
I'm in Mexico now, but once somebody once I can learn to swim better, then I'm going to go back to Texas.
As you do,
And then, but yeah, I think that would be pretty amazing. I can't help but wonder exactly how that works with the tariffs and all that. Like, how does that affect us as the American people? Like, are we going to have to pay extra for certain goods, or is that taken care of by the other countries that they're trading with? How does that work exactly?
Well, with the tariffs, it's the answer is somewhere in the middle. So let's take the let's take the Colombia tariff that he rolled out. And AOC was like, oh no, what will Americans do if Colombia has to raise the price of coffee 25%? Because Trump puts a blanket tariff on all goods coming out of Colombia.
Mhm.
The left wants you to think that the only alternative to that, if you're in Colombia, is to raise the prices 25% and then tax the American people. The reality of how this stuff works is, first of all, it never stays 25%. It gets negotiated down to whatever is actually fair. But the other reality is people just switch to a different bean. They'll drink Ethiopian coffee. They'll drink, their coffee from Madagascar. Some people may pay the higher price, but not everyone will. Also, there is a likelihood, given free enterprise, there will be some Colombian bean farmer who's going to say, you know what, I'm going to eat that 25%. I'm going to sell my beans to America to compensate for that tariff, and they'll get the business. And so that they'll make it up with volume instead of, margin. So they may have less margin, but they'll make it up in volume, or they'll find a way to make the product cheaper. Sure, some big Colombian bean makers might say, we're not lowering our prices, we're going to stick it to America. But that only lasts for about a week. Because once the American, like Ethiopian coffee is extremely good, and it's a lighter roast than Colombian, but it's widely regarded as one of the best, coffee countries in the world. Hawaii has coffee. I mean, Rwanda has coffee. There's any number of these kind of Southern Hemisphere nations that would just pick up the slack.
And sugar cane. There were all kinds of things we used to make domestically, or when they were freaking out about coffee over the weekend, they were also freaking out about flowers. But like, we could grow flowers domestically.
Yes.
We have alternatives. I don't know if you guys know, but we have this huge country, and a lot of it is agricultural land that happens to be in tons of different climates.
Yeah.
And it seems kind of crazy that the alternative is like, Trump bad for imposing tariffs when it could be domestic production.
Right. And us individually, like we can manage. We feel like we're managing our own money that we're making instead of just giving it to the government to sort it through taxes. It's like, okay, wait, I don't need Colombian coffee. I can get this other kind, or I can, we don't have to be buying things that are necessarily like hiked up in prices because of the tariffs and stuff. So you can have people who have the extra money who want to buy more luxury items, and then you can also have people who are on a budget who can manage our money and say, hey, wait, I don't need all of this fancy stuff. I can actually live off of mostly US made things and save money and be responsible.
Yeah, and by the way, someone in chat says you're mostly consuming pesticides if you're not buying organic coffee. Sorry to say, the overwhelming majority of organic labels are complete BS, and that's also true of the coffee industry. It's literally just a certificate that you buy. Nobody's really out there enforcing it. It's the same thing that people are like, I buy my eggs cage-free. Yeah? How many people are enforcing that? In Wisconsin, I believe there's 2 people in the entire state that are in charge of enforcing whether or not you qualify as a free range chicken place or organic. Most of this stuff is just a farce to charge you more money. But yeah, I mean, the whole scare tactic of tariffs are a tax on the American people. Let's not forget that Colombia just has the opportunity to comply with what we want, and they don't get tariffed in these particular cases, like taking back their own migrants. If we, by the way, we still voluntarily pay a tariff to Japan. Do you know that we told Japan to enact this tariff so that we could pay them back for for Nagasaki and Hiroshima?
Oh,
we still pay that tariff now in 2025, 50 years later. So, the UK, we can't sell our cars in China, but China, sells all their crap here. We should be tariffing them. We can't sell GM cars in the UK, but the UK can send all the cars they want here. So we should be tariffing them so that they can either relocate their companies here or they'll take US cars. So there are so many ways that tariffs can be leveraged that are not a tax on
the American people.
Yeah, it's not Yeah, it's not a tax on people in the way that the left wants you to think it is.
I think it's bad that the left
Yeah.
panics about it too. I mean, it's such an emotional reaction. You're going to tax the American people. Don't you want us to have any kind of leverage? Like, if you're for the American people, why would you want
Aren't you
them
pro-union?
spending? Right. I mean, wouldn't you want them spending their money on higher quality goods that are produced domestically so that there are workers and domestic companies that benefit from this? Like, it just seems so short-sighted. And I think that is sort of the Democratic pattern. They create panic around an issue and, you know, ask for a lot of money to create a temporary solution that later has a bigger problem that they then need to ask for more money for. And meanwhile, they're also like, give up any kind of international influence that you can have, either because of some sort of weird Western guilt or because, you know, we think that we owe everyone an interventionist attitude. And I just don't think that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'll take half. How about half federal taxes? How about you know, just a little bit less? I think any less taxes that you charge gives Americans more money in their pocket,
Right. Yeah.
gives them more money to spend, gives, you know, people like me more money to hire more people. That money is proven time and time again that goes back in the U.S. economy. There are smart people who don't just squirrel that money away. Some people do, but there are a lot of people out there, business owners and stuff, who are like, hey, you know what? I'd like to invest. If I paid, I mean, I pay almost a 50% tax. If I was paying a 40% tax, you know, that's a lot of money. That covers somebody's salary to add on to the team, plus a little extra for me, you know? So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. It's fun to float it. I think he's more interested in tariffs. Like, hey, get the money first. But I guess we'll have to see.
And I think you're more likely to see a reduction in the federal income tax before complete abolition of it. But maybe you start at the extreme. You say, we'll get rid of it entirely. And that means everyone who wants to negotiate with you comes to the table and you could potentially lower it.
Yeah. The art of the deal. No more taxes is the big ask, right?